Hi, it's Jen, and we are continuing the Easy Piece Table Runner. This time it's for August. We had a wonderful time designing this fun and colorful runner, and I just love that this kind of watercolor look is just perfect for summertime when everything is blooming and everything is beautiful. And of course the birds are everywhere, so we couldn't resist by putting some birdhouses in the project as well. These blocks look complex, but I'm going to show you here they're super simple. If you're just joining us for the first time in this series, we've been going a couple months now already. Be sure to jump in and get all of the patterns. We of course have kits available as well. They'll be in these exact same fabrics, and all of the applique is pre-fused and laser cut for you. We also have coordinating threads if you do like to coordinate your thread when you're doing the applique. So if you're going to be if you're getting the kits, these instructions are already included, but if you're going to be using your own fabric, you'll need to download those instructions. Just go to the Shabby Fabrics homepage, click on free downloads, and you'll be looking for the Easy Piece Table Runner series for August. So, of course, our fabric requirements will be there, as well as the recommended products. And these blocks that look complex start off with just 7.5-inch squares. We've done the teal block 2 times and the purple block just once. So you'll be cutting twice as many of the teal as you will the purple. So 2 7.5-inch squares of the light teal, 2 7.5-inch squares of the dark teal, and you're simply going to make a 4-patch. Something you've probably done many, many times before. Simply right sides together, sewing a 1/4-inch seam allowance and pressing to the dark side, and then just join those 2 rows together and we'll get a very large 4-patch. So we've done that ahead of time. So this is what you have here. Now this is one of the funnest parts about this, and I'm going to use the 2.5 by 6.5-inch ruler. You'd think, you know, what is a ruler like this really going to be handy for? You're going to see how handy this ruler really is. How you start this block off is I'm just going to turn this because I want to just measure 2.5 inches down. And what's nice about that is if I was using a ruler that was wider than 2.5, I'd have to find that 2.5 on my ruler. What's nice about this is I just lay the ruler on the edge of the fabric and I know I'm at my 2.5. Now I'm using a friction pen and I'm going to draw a nice bold line because I will be looking for that. I'm drawing on some dark fabric, so I need to draw really dark. Now let's say that you were using your own fabric and you're using a black. That's why you'll be using one of our white marking tools. And those are erasable either with like a damp cloth or with heat. So don't worry if you're doing a nice bold line. I don't want you to be using a permanent marker at this point. All right, so same in this corner. Is all I have to do is just quickly lay that ruler down. I'm not trying to find a specific measurement on my ruler. And we're just going to mark all of our spots here. The spinning mat, let me do that a little bit bolder. It kind of just happened to be on like a branch where I might not visually see that. When I was sort of young quilter, I thought, why do I ever need anything rather than my 6 by 24-inch ruler? And now I'm realizing that sometimes when I'm working in limited space, like when I've been in a quilt retreat, having these smaller rulers is really important because I'm really working in some very limited quarters, or the person I'm sitting next to is so close by that, you know, my big ruler is actually kind of bumping them. So I have definitely found multiple reasons to have a variety of sizes of rulers. And this little guy, boy, you can't get a couple of these because you'll be surprised at how often you're grabbing for that ruler. Now that we have that marked, I'm going to grab a different 2.5-inch ruler, but much longer, and I'm going to be looking for the base of each one of my marks. Now, if you've lost where that is, like let's say, like I can't tell because that's where my fabric, you know, that's where a dark part of my shadowing is on my fabric, go back and check and mark again. It's very important that you hit these just so. I made the block the first time and I missed that mark by 1/8 of an inch and the block did not come out. So it's very important that you go ahead and nail that. Now I drew the line all the way out. You will be cutting, you'll be putting your ruler right where that line intercepts the edge of the fabric. So I have that here, and I have that down here. And again, if you have any doubt, just measure again. And we're going to cut here. And I'm going to come back over. There's the base of my 2.5 inch there, and the base right there. Now the reason I'm using that spinning mat, of course, is going to become very apparent to you. We just want to rotate that. I don't want to disturb my fabrics right now. It's very important they stay exactly where they are. Again, I'll very carefully lay the ruler right along where that line intercepts the edge of the fabric. Again, there to there. Okay, so we've got that part cut now. So inside your instructions, I want to point this out because sometimes how to rotate these blocks can be confusing. So right here in our instructions, right, we have the same sight picture as we have right here. We're simply going to move these clockwise one position. That will come to here, comes here. So we just kind of trade. Isn't that something? How that's our block. That's it. That's amazing to me that it works that way. So that's what we're showing you here in this step. Now, as you can see, the assembly is diagonal. So we'll start with, we can start really anywhere. I'm going to bring this to here. Now this is where I have these bottom flaps. I have a choice here. So if you're being new, if you're experienced, you know what I'm going to do. But if you're a new quilter, yes, I could absolutely take this to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch here. But what is underneath my machine are these flaps. And sometimes as you're sewing, they want to fold back on you. For that reason, I'm going to flip this over. I want this on top. I want to see what the fabric is doing. On the bottom here, nothing's going to happen because there's no flaps there. There's no seams here. So for that reason, I like to always have the side of the fabric that has the most going on and can most kind of flip back on me, up on surface with me where I'm looking at it, so I can make sure that does not happen. So I'm going to pin that and just put that in position. Now let's see what's next. So this, of course, will come right sides together. This is how I always approach sewing projects. Consequently, if you get these little bit of dog ears here, just go ahead and trim them away. I try to take, when I'm doing a block like this, what can I take to the sewing machine at one time in my first trip, right? I could have just done this whole diagonal thing where I go sew and I come back and I put the end on and then I sew and come back. I kind of want to minimize my round trips, I would call it, to the sewing machine. So I know I can sew this one next. So I'm going to line that up here as well. Now let's look at this one. I want, again, that side that has that seam, I want that to be on top with me, not down below. I'm going to sew on this side. So Now you're working with some bias. One thing that I should have mentioned early on, and I've done it in a previous video, is really with anything where you have bias, which is stretch, anything on the 45-degree angle. Remember we made those 45-degree cuts. Use that sizing that you can that magic sizing you can spray into your fabric kind of even before you even iron it out, and be generous with it. Don't just get in there and spray it, dry it up. The fabric has more, it has more body, right? More body, and it's less likely to have that stretch. It's going to be less likely to stretch out and get out of shape. So I have found very good luck by using sizing throughout making these blocks. So let's go to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew the first couple things here. Now I'm using the Confetti 50 weight cotton, and this is our neutral thread. It's a white, gray, and a black, and the truth is I don't really piece with anything else. This will get me through absolutely any project I'm doing. I'm using the white today. I could have easily used the gray, and there's a lot of thread on these spools. Absolutely fantastic, and the lint is very, very low. So if you're looking for a really good quality piecing thread, I would 100% recommend that thread. So let's jump over here and let's get some sewing going on. I'll be sewing with my BERNINA 770 Quilters Edition. Thank you, BERNINA. We absolutely love this sewing machine. And I've got a little starter strip to help us get going. I'm just going to come in with the very next fabric right after it. Okay, see how that was a nice little time-saving trip. I was able to sew 3 sections of that block in one trip. And of course we will get that our iron all heated up here. And we're going to press, and then you'll see that once we kind of get everything pinned, for the next round of 3 sections to piece together, we'll piece that, and then you're basically just sewing the block together as you would expect to sew a block together. So let's go ahead and get our pressing mat going. This is another great item. Again, I've been to so many quilt retreats where in my sewing room, true confession here, I'm a messy quilter. I have stuff everywhere. I have a big, beautiful ironing board. And I went to my first quilt retreat and I felt like I was kind of operating within a box. And that's when I kind of learned that having these smaller little pressing mats on a full-size ironing board, I kind of need that type of thing. So if you definitely go on retreats, or maybe you're just in a sewing group where you have limited space on a table, this type of thing is so helpful to have. So let's see here. We know that we want to press toward the center. So I'm actually going to start with that one. Let's start with that. I've got bias here, so I'm being, I would say, exceptionally gentle, because it's going to be very easy to get something a little bit distorted. You definitely don't want any of that motion. All right, and with this one here, again, let's just press to that dark center. I like to press from the back side, and then I like to check the front, because every now and again I kind of take a tuck. And that's a certain amount of fabric, right? My block's going to end up too small because I've got a little tuck in there. So that's why I like to confirm from the front that I didn't inadvertently take a tuck. If you did, just unpress it and start again. Not a big deal. Okay, so I've got that going here. And of course here, right sides together. Now here I have a choice. I could start here, which I don't usually like starting on a point. I'm going to start here. So I'm going to flip that over and pin. Okay, take that sewing machine, and I always put it at my machine the direction that I'm going to sew, so I don't inadvertently sew the wrong side. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I have admittedly done it more than one time. So here, right sides together. I'm going to flip that. Let's get that little dog ear off. We'll pin. Okay, that one's going to be next. And then here. So you know what, I want to check real quick. We talked about pressing. Pressing is really important. Let's look at something real fast. We know our block's going to go together. Let's see here. Our block is going to be going together like this, right? And we knew that we pressed toward the center here. The reason I waited to press the center was I wanted to see what I did out here, because that's going to determine what I do in the middle. There's a lot going on here, out here, and so I pressed toward the middle where there's less resistance. Since I pressed toward the middle here, that means this row needs to go to the outside. So that's sometimes if you're not sure which direction to press, it's not obvious, just wait, because you definitely want to have interlocking seams. That's very important. That helps your blocks lie flat. See how that works like that? Okay, and of course you would go like this. We're going to flip because we want to have our seams on the top, remember, like we talked about, so that we don't have any seams inadvertently rolling under when we are sewing that together. Bringing that, and again, this together, pinning. We'll just put a couple pins in that and just sew. And again, you'd bring the block back as you would any block once those units are together. And you've got these sections, and you'll just simply sew those together. Once you've done that, this is what your block will look like. I wanted to show you what it looks like because it's not what you think it's not what you would expect, right? You're like, what went wrong? This is normal. I wanted you to see how kind of weird it looks, and that is normal. So now this is where using a 12.5-inch square up ruler from Creative Grids is so important, because it has its dash line here, or excuse me, a solid white line here, a solid white line, and a bullseye right in the middle. Well, I've got that seam guidance here, which I absolutely love. I can use my white line to go right along that seam, and here to go right along there. If anything is off ever so slightly, even if you just kind of pull ever just so slightly, not crazy, just gently, if you're off just a little bit, like it doesn't line up perfectly, join the club. Mine never does either. I get close, but I've rarely ever been on. You might want to repress a little bit, or just kind of find the middle of it. There, I think I'm on. I could be off by maybe a 32nd of an inch. It will work. That is definitely close enough to build a beautiful block and a beautiful table runner. Now, with holding steady, just going to turn that. I absolutely love a spinning mat. It has made not only my blocks more accurate because I don't have to pick them up and move them, but safer. I'm not doing some crazy cuts, this way or this way. It's just so much safer, and the blocks are more accurate, so it's all just good, good, good. And that's what our block looks like. And isn't that just beautiful? Remember, that just started with 2 light colored 7.5-inch squares and 2 dark colored 7.5-inch squares. And you can see that that's really a very easy block to make. So you make 2 of our teal, 1 of our purple, and you'll sew those together. Now, what's been different about this particular applique end from the previous months is that in the previous months we had you have your background and you had your sky and what I would call the ground, and we had you sew that together first and then applique on top of that. Here, because we wanted to have the flower stems and the bird, kind of the posts, go ahead and be sewn into the seam allowance. What I'd like you to do differently this time, and we've included in the instructions, is to have your background and put your sky portion on, but then don't put the bottom on just yet. Go ahead and bring that applique stems and your posts all the way to the bottom of your background. Go ahead and iron that down, and then you'll add the bottom piece, and then you'll applique as you prefer. Of course, you'll be attaching one to either end, and then you'll be finishing your table runner as you prefer. So that super beautiful block and these amazing fabrics is so simple to do. If you're enjoying this series, I'd love to hear from you, and maybe you have a friend that has been a little bit intimidated, thinking that quilting is too hard for them. Please share that with a friend and show them that really, even though while it looks complex, it's really just some simple steps, some accurate measuring tools, and it's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to seeing you for the Easy Piece Table Runner coming up for September.